Jacalyn. I just want
No.
to check in with you. There's been a lot of speaking out there about interest rates. I know that they were down and then they went up, so maybe you could talk about that a little bit.
Yes, so they were down for a little while and things were looking really, really nice. And then they popped up with everything that's happening globally. And then now they've actually started to improve a little bit. So we've seen some really positive improvement over the last couple of days. So as we're recording this, it's April 2nd. So we've started to see some really nice improvement. We're not back to 100% where we were at the beginning of March, but we're trending in the right direction. And that's the important piece.
That's great. So it's weird because the Fed didn't raise interest rates. So is this banks just speculating?
No, so it actually has more to do with absolutely everything else. So labor, employment rates, inflation numbers, different commentary that we're seeing from both the president, the administration, and the Fed chair. So there's quite a few factors that are kind of rolling into everything.
Okay. And what kind of difference are we talking about? I mean, we were around like 6%, and how far did they go up and come back down? And how much of a difference does that make kind of in your payments?
Yeah, it was, I'd say we were probably hovering around the low sixes, probably popped up about a 0.5%, so 6.5-ish. And then we've started to see that come back down. So we're about earlier in the week, we've seen about an eighth to a 1/4% improvement in rate. And then it really just depends on your loan structure more than anything. But 1/4% in interest rate in a lot of cases could be about 75 to 100-ish dollars per month in payment. So it's not a massive impact. It's not $1,000, but it's not insignificant. So it's definitely something to look at. And that doesn't mean that you can't still get that lower rate. We just might have to pay to get there. And that's where your seller concessions come in.
Yes, and seller concessions are huge right now because a lot of people have stopped
Hmm.
looking because they hear turmoil in the market and they automatically think, I'm just going to hold off and wait,
Yeah.
which they shouldn't wait because our inventory is higher now. I mean, I think it's double right now than it was in 2023. So
Hmm.
that many houses on the market, those sellers, they need to do something to help buyers out. And seller concessions is a huge thing, in which
Yes.
seller concessions is when we make an offer on a house and then we ask the seller to pay, $10,000 in closing costs or even 20, $30,000 we've gotten. I know you've done some deals with me. And then you use that money to buy down those interest rates. And how many points can you buy down?
You can buy down as much as you want to spend. So there's a limit on how much we can get from the seller. So depending on your down payment, if you do anything less than 10% down, generally speaking, and this is just on a conventional loan, just to keep it simple, you can get up to 3% of the purchase price. If you put down more than 10%, you can get up to 6%. So typically what we do is first thing is we want to knock out all of your closing costs. So that way all of your money as the buyer is covering just your down payment. And then after that, we would apply it to seller paid discount points for that lower rate. And then we look at if there's anything else that we can pay. So, like if you have PMI or mortgage insurance, you do have an option to prepay that if it makes sense to. So, if we have some extra cash and it doesn't make sense to buy down that rate anymore, maybe we lump sum payment on that mortgage insurance. So, there's a bunch of ways that we can be really strategic with that money. I also like to use a combination of maybe a reduction in price and a combination with the concessions. So that way we're kind of hitting both angles. But I'd say concessions towards a lower rate does have a much more substantial impact to your monthly payment than maybe a five or $10,000 decrease on the purchase price.
So then, since this is a time when most sellers are offering seller concessions, this is actually a great time to buy. And half a percentage point as far as interest rates go shouldn't really make people stop, correct?
Correct. I'd
Yes.
say, I mean, I've been singing this song for a very long time, but you're not the only one waiting if you're waiting on rates to improve. And for every 1% decrease in interest rates, 5 million buyers become eligible to purchase at a given price point. So if you're on the fence, you're not on the fence alone. There's 100,000 other people waiting to buy at that same house potentially. And so everyone's going to flood the market at the same time. And that's what drives up prices. And so while you might get a lower rate on a house, if you were to wait until those rates come down, you might be paying more for the house. So your payment might end up being the same if you had just bought it 6 months earlier with a slightly higher rate. But the difference is in 6 months, maybe you can refinance it to that lower rate, but you got a better deal on the house. So my thought is always if it makes sense for you to buy right now, regardless of what's going on in the headlines and the global economy and everything else, then now is when you should buy. And right now happens to be a really great time because we've got those seller concessions, which we haven't seen this influx of concessions holding on for this long because it's what been like 3 years or so now with these concessions. At some point, they're probably going to shift a little bit. I don't think they'll go away, but I think they might get reduced. And I'd say on average right now, almost every single one of my clients is getting at least 7,500 to 10,000 per transaction, but I've had them upwards of 35,000. So just make sure you're working with the
Yeah,
right
so I think
agent
that
and right negotiations.
yes, I mean I have seen it, and I'm loving the negotiations on the buyer's side, not loving it on the seller's side. So
Yeah,
I'm
that's the
trying to
hard part.
still be a buyer, but I don't predict this to last. We just don't have enough housing in the Denver metro area. So right now we have a lot of housing on the market, and that's kind of a rare situation to be in Denver.
Yeah,
So I would definitely say strike now because even if you get a better interest rate, I could see you paying even more,
yeah.
not being able to get the seller concessions or, heaven forbid those bidding wars, they're going to come back
Mhm.
someday. So
Yeah,
yeah,
they'll be back and then we'll see appraisal gap coverage again and waivers of every variety and
inspections and
yeah.
everything like that. I mean, now buyers are able to go in with their inspection items and be like, seller, fix all of these.
And the
And
seller's doing it.
yeah, sellers are absolutely doing it. So yeah. So to reiterate, I just want to check with you. Yes, it is a great time to buy, so buy now.
Absolutely. And hey, we know some people that could help you with that, so you should reach out.
Yes. Thanks, Jacqueline.
You bet. Thank you, ma'am.